This is a bottle of oil, and we use oil in our recipes all the time. In fact, most chefs do. And the reason why we use it is because it makes cooking that little bit easier. But one question that we get asked in our DMs all the time is, guys, can you make a recipe or some recipes that feature no oil at all? So in this video, what we've decided to do is answer that question head on. We're going to cook loads of different types of vegetables using zero oil. Let's see how it turns out. Oil-free roast potatoes. So with these roast potatoes, we're going to use some aquafaba to try and crisp up the sides, just like oil. Add your potatoes to a pan. Cover the potatoes with cold water. Add 2 stock cubes. Bring the water to a boil and let the potatoes simmer for around about 8 to 10 minutes. Once the potatoes have steam dried, chuff them in a colander. Pop your potatoes into the roasting tin. Drizzle the water from a tin of chickpeas over the potatoes. Mix the potatoes around in the chickpea water, also known as aquafaba. Now cover your potatoes with fine polenta. Add a good pinch of salt and a good pinch of pepper and mix them around so your potatoes are completely covered in the aquafaba and the polenta. Add the garlic to the roasting tin. Pop the potatoes in the oven for 40 minutes. So after 40 minutes, these potatoes are looking pretty crispy. I'm going to drizzle over the remaining aquafaba. Now turn them around in the pan with a pair of tongs. Got some good crispy bits on there. Now I'm going to add some more flavour to these potatoes in the form of fresh thyme and rosemary. Now add a little bit more seasoning in the form of salt and pepper. And these are going back into the oven for a further 30 minutes. Now these roast potatoes look absolutely incredible considering there's been zero oil. That aquafaba looks like it's really done the trick because they're super crispy. Nice golden crust to them. I bet these are going to be delicious. Oil-free carrots and parsnips. So with the carrots and the parsnips, we're just going to add a little bit of flavour and then let the oven do the work to give us some nice crispy texture. First up, you're going to need to salt some boiling water. Boil your carrots and parsnips for around about 5 minutes so they're just starting to turn a bit tender. Drain off your carrots and your parsnips. Right now it's flavour time. First up, maple syrup, red wine vinegar. Get a decent pinch of salt and a decent pinch of pepper and give that a stir around. Now for the carrots and parsnips. Give them a stir around in all that lovely flavour, making sure that they're really well covered. Now that the carrots and parsnips are all covered in that lovely flavour, it's time to add some fresh herbs in the form of thyme. Pop these in the oven for 30 minutes at 180 degrees Celsius. So these parsnips and carrots are looking fantastic. The colour is nice, they've got what looks to be a nice texture on the skin. And now we're going to add a little bit more flavour in the form of some orange juice. Not very much, so that will give it a nice citrus note. Turn the carrots and the parsnips around in the pan with a pair of tongs. These are looking great. Pop these back in the oven for a further 15 minutes to finish off the cooking. Oh yes, so these parsnips and carrots are looking absolutely delightful. They look perfectly cooked. Look at those parsnips, they're basically golden, which is exactly what they want it to be. I'm extremely pleased with the way that these have turned out. Oil-free Brussels sprouts. Now Brussels sprouts get pretty crispy in the oven on their own, so all we really need to do is hit them with some flavour. This is balsamic glaze, it's vegan Worcestershire sauce, and here is some water. Stir that all around to mix it all together. Pop your Brussels sprouts in the tray. Now for some shallots. Garlic, mix everything around in the tray, making sure that everything is covered in that very simple but wildly effective marinade. Give the Brussels sprouts a little seasoning with a bit of salt and a touch of pepper. Now pop your sprouts in the oven for 30 minutes and give them a little stir halfway through. I'm really pleased with the way that these Brussels sprouts have turned out. They look like they're perfectly cooked. I think the idea of putting shallots in with the Brussels sprouts to keep them moist was a really good one. Oh, they look great. Oil-free butternut squash. I'm quite concerned that this butternut squash could get quite crispy quite easily. So to prevent this butternut squash from drying out completely, I'm going to add a little bit of stock into the roasting dish in the hope that it will keep it nice and moist. Pop your butternut squash into a casserole dish. Make sure they're laid out nice and flat. Sage goes marvellously with butternut squash. Now for some chili flakes and our fave, garlic. Now pour 100 ml of vegetable stock over the butternut squash. That will prevent it from drying out when it's in the oven and it will give it a wonderful flavour. Add a good pinch of pepper. Pop the butternut squash in the oven at 180 degrees Celsius for around about 35 minutes. turn the squash halfway through, and if it's looking a little bit dry, just add a little bit more stock. Now this squash is looking really fantastic. I think the idea of putting stock in the roasting tin was a really good one because it prevented it from drying out too much. They look beautifully tender, taken on that flavour really, really nice. I think that's going to go fantastically well on a roast dinner. Oil-free, creamy leeks. So I'm going to turn these leeks into a bit of a main event by adding a little bit of vegan cream. First up, vegan cream. Now add some nutritional yeast, vegan parmesan, pureed garlic. Add in a good pinch of pepper and a good pinch of salt. Stir that mixture around in the bottom of the dish. Now for your leeks. Gently stir the leeks around in the cheesy, creamy mixture. Pop your leeks in the oven at 180 degrees for around about 25 to 30 minutes. Now, I'm a big fan of leeks, and these look really fantastic. Look at the way that they've opened up in the middle, like little leaky pinwheels. That will have ensured that they'll have taken on the flavour that we gave in that nice creamy sauce. I think these are a potential game changer. So there we have it, oil-free sides. You guys have asked for oil-free recipes for a long time, so we thought we'd give you 5. Look, we've got butternut squash, we've got Brussels sprouts, we've got roast potatoes, carrots, parsnips, and creamy leeks. I think these are wicked. Let's see what Henry thinks.
I'm amazed you managed to cook all these sides without any oil.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it?
Wow. So if you're after oil-free, healthier Christmas sides, this is definitely the recipe for you to try.
Let us know what you think about the video in the comments section below.
See you next time.
Take care, guys. Peace. Bye-bye.